Exciting news, everyone. My new book, I Wish I'd Quit Sooner, is officially out now. You can grab it on all major book retailers and online distributors, and the audiobook is also available on all the popular listening apps. Visit drlaura.live or check the link in the show notes to get your copy today. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Where Work Meets Life. I'm Dr. Laura, and I'm so excited to be here today with someone I truly admire, Dr. Jody Carrington, a psychologist, a speaker, an author who has done so many amazing things, including written a book we're going to talk a bit about today called Feeling Seen. Reconnecting in a disconnected world. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Jody Carrington, and what we're talking about today is the power of human connection in an AI-focused world. So the world these days is tricky, and Jody Carrington brings hope. She's a powerhouse speaker. So like me, she loves to share messages with audience, and she's a fearless champion for authentic human connection, which in these days of disconnection, of social media comparison, of such a focus on AI, we sometimes and often end up losing the human connections that we so need for our children, our teens, us as adults. We're missing that. There's a missing link going on, and we're going to explore that, talk about that. Jody lives in Alberta, like me. She's written 3 best-selling books, speaks to hundreds of stages globally each year. And I know that translates into tens of thousands of people are hearing her message each year. She has a generous heart and spirit. We really connect well. I've been on her podcast talking about my toxic boss adventure, and I wish I'd quit sooner. And I'm delighted to welcome Jody onto Where Work Meets Life. Hello, my friend.
Dr. Laura, so good to be here. I'm so excited. Let's jump in.
It's such a pleasure. Tell me a little bit more, and our listeners and viewers a little bit more about you, Jody, where you're at today, and Feeling Seen, your newest book.
Yeah, it's getting old actually. The next book, I think we were just talking about this before we went live. So the next book is greenlit already because it's been, I think, 4 years since that came out. And it's really interesting. Even when you were reading the title there, I was like, God, yes, like we're still in this place. And I think we will be for the rest of our careers, right? How do we stay the discipline of connection in a world where it's so sexy not to? And it's so alluring, the dopamine hits that, I mean, we're using these words more and more these days, but it's like, I often think about the fact that like, if I were to take the big 4 in the social media space, so like Amazon, Uber, Meta, Google, they own an $8.49 trillion market share capitalization, which means the desire to keep us online and not looking at each other is very lucrative, regardless of the fact that, yes, it makes it easier. Yes, there's so many benefits. Technology isn't the problem. How we use it is the issue. And we're up against it as humans because 2 things, and they're sort of in a collide of sort of values at the end of the day. As humans, we're 2 things. We're wired for connection. So we do better when we're in relationship, when we're in the same physical spaces of other people, all of those things. Everything breaks down when that happens, more so than not. But second, the hardest thing about being human is the hardest thing we will ever do is look at each other. So we're in these 2 sort of opposing conundrums, which historically wasn't anything we needed to talk about because we had this one thing going for us necessary to make the world function, which was proximity. We had to we lived in smaller houses. We had smaller school houses. Our police detachments were smaller. All of the things, our hospitals were smaller. We had to rely on each other to sort of report what was happening. And in the evenings, we would, even in our lifetime, sit around one TV and be able in some capacities to put each other's lids back on. Now, not to romanticize previous generations, because I understand there's a lot of shit that happened there too. However, we have never seen this dramatic of an increase in things like anxiety and depression, suicidal ideation and completion, all of those things that like destroy us as humans have never been more prevalent, despite the fact that we've never talked more about therapy or mental health or advocacy in those spaces. So the question becomes, what is the problem? Is this a mental health crisis? And I don't think it is. I think it's a loneliness epidemic.
Okay, interesting. Why don't you think it's a mental health crisis? I want to dig into that a little bit because I see it all around me and I'm wondering why the reframe.
Because I think if we label it as a mental health crisis, we're blaming those of us that are experiencing the mental health crisis, right? The anxiety, the depression, it must be because menopause is more talked about. It must be because, we're really uncovering the differential role and the marginalization of humans. And this is what, whatever, despite the fact that the highest rate of suicide in our country by a landslide is middle-aged white men, by a landslide. So the most privileged among us, white, straight, able-bodied, and with a penis, has the highest rate of suicide globally without question. And so the question then becomes why? If you have access to the most resources, and that's irrefutable. So that data is very true. And I speak a lot in corporate Canada, corporate America, to a lot still, the vast majority of senior leaders are white, straight, able-bodied men. And so when we start to talk about this statistic, it's like, well, and I'm married to a white, straight, able-bodied man. I'm raising two sons. This for me is far past the conversation around equality and who deserves what. What I'm most interested in is how we've set up men and boys to fail horrifically, and how we're in the middle of this is why I'm so grateful to be alive right now. Um, Empowered those with the massive skill set that we need right now in this very disconnected world is people with an emotional language, people who can tolerate distress, people who can hang on to emotion. Somebody's crying, we don't run. Who has a better skill set in that regard because of how the world has evolved by far is women over men. So as companies start to fall apart, as people get burnt out and overwhelmed and exhausted, what we don't need is traditional ways of operating, which is, let's policy, procedure, let's follow the rules. What's our Q1 look like? What's our Q2? Historically, we have identified soft skills as important. They are not just a nicety anymore. They are strategy. And when you are really thinking about who is at the head of your leadership tables and their capacity to hold emotion, bring humans back together, not get more efficient necessarily, you will skyrocket past other companies that are not focusing on those things right now.
I couldn't agree more. And what you were saying about the mental health epidemic and using the language of a loneliness epidemic reminds me too of we don't want to blame the person. And we do that a lot with burnout. It's about, okay, how can Jody work on her mental health and creating more space and mindfulness and all these things when burnout is an organizational issue? It's because the foundations of the organization are running in a really unhealthy way, right? Overload, inundation of work that's unrealistic. And then we get toxicity in the organization and we get all these issues. And when we lack soft skills as leaders, we don't have the ability to manage them, do we?
Yeah, and I think what's more interesting is, or not more interesting, sorry, but if I were to just sort of like refine it to the ultimate issue, we are playing by a set of rules that was established for a world that no longer exists. So I think we still have a massive, not still, we have always had a massive amount of talent, of kindness, of empathy, of capacity to be innovative and creative and kind. We're losing access to the best parts of us because just think about when a toddler misses a nap, or when we get overwhelmed, when we feel like uncertainty, fear, no end in sight, all of those things. Like if you just got a cancer diagnosis in your family system, if you're going through a divorce, think about where you're at and your ability to notice other people in those moments, right? We lose access because we're dealing with the here and now. We're in this sort of crisis mode where I often think about, if you can get the visual of people with their shoulders up and their blood pressure high, and there's nothing baked in to our structure that allows us to rest, because we're playing by a set of rules that was established for a world that no longer exists. You get up and you go hard. In just one generation, we used to have a day of rest. I grew up with that. This is not old ways of operating, right? We are the first generation of parents, of leaders, of grandparents for sure, to have access to social media and the constant inundation. Okay, so although technological advances have changed so many things for so many of us in terms of physical healthcare and technological advances, we can do this quite easy without having to leave our houses. All of those are beautiful. What the cost to that has been the fact that most of my work happens at 10 o'clock at night. I am always checking my email, and we've for a long time sort of lived under the guise of like, well, it's hustle culture, and it's if you want to be successful, and like that's what you got to do, and like all the things. Maybe, but we also come from a generation of people who, and particularly our fathers, said, if you rest, you're lazy. And now we have so many opportunities not to rest that we just don't take them. And we're not wired for this. The human operating system is the only one that has not evolved. Everything else, the way that we operate in this world, has evolved so quickly. And so now we wonder why we're tired. And so the conversation then is like, how do we get more efficient? And then enter AI at the worst possible time on the heels of a pandemic. And here we are, suddenly in a world that's never been more divided.
Mm-hmm.
This is not hard for me. Like every time I talk this out with anybody, I'm just like, are you like, we are human. This is a human race. Our DNA as human beings trying to navigate this process on this planet. We are 99.98% the same. Race is a social construct. Gender identity is a social construct. Our DNA is, we all start in exactly the same place. We all end in exactly the same place. And the greatest desire that motivates all of us is a desire to feel seen. And when we are acknowledged, we rise. When we are acknowledged, we start to learn how to regulate emotion and stay calm in times of distress, which allows us to access the best parts of us. We are in a very uncalming world right now, completely dysregulated all day. My phone is right in front of me. I know yours is too. My email notifications are on. I usually have a watch on because people are buzzing me. Yeah. So despite the fact that we're here having this very sacred conversation, our capacity to stay very connected to each other is completely obliterated. So Jonathan Haidt talks a lot about two things that I think are he's worried about kids, but I'm more worried about adults right now. Two things he talks about all the time right now that are very different from this generation to the last is we've never been this attention fragmented, which means our eyes are everywhere all the time. We're watching the Oilers game and playing Block Blast. I'm having a conversation with my kids, playing cards, and my phone's going off. Right? That means I'm missing something in our human interaction. The subtleties of communication are what always driven us as humans, which is what AI can't do. And we're losing access to that. Okay. So this constant inundation means I'm ready for the fight most of the days. And then at the end of the day, when I go to bed, I snuggle into bed and watch Dateline, where somebody's going to get murdered in Tallahassee. And I'm in my bed, not knowing, my body doesn't know I'm not in Tallahassee, Florida, watching Vanessa get murdered. And then my sleep has been compromised. So not only do I don't put the phone down till 2 a.m. because I want to see I want to watch that last episode of The Pit. I mean, I got to know, is Noah going to be okay without me? Probably not. He's going to die on that motorbike. So I need to know if he's really going to die because it's designed to keep us there. And then I'm exhausted and overwhelmed and I don't like people. And that's a problem as a psychologist. I want to throat punch everybody. The problem isn't everybody, it's me, because I've lost access to the best in me.
And you covered so much ground there, but I think that rest equals lazy. I think that's one of the biggest moments for people. Rest is not lazy. Rest is rejuvenation, and rest is staying on top of your well-being and your cognitive functioning and your ability to give back to yourself and others. And rest is few and far between. Sundays are no longer a rest day. When I grew up, the malls were closed on Sundays. Sundays was considered a sacred day. And I noticed about myself, I've been working every day just because I can and it's flexible. And I rationalize it that, okay, I have the flexibility at any time during the week, so it doesn't really matter if I work during pockets of the weekend. But then what I was finding is I don't have one single day where I'm not on emails. So I made a pact actually this past weekend. I'm not going to touch work on Sunday. I can do lots of like relaxing and different things, but I cannot be on work emails or work projects. And I almost did it. I had it sneak in a little bit, but I was so relaxed by the end of the day, Jody, because I detached.
Yeah, and listen, pause right now for your listeners. You are tuning into two very successful, powerful, educated women who I would argue are the first, probably in our lineages, respectively. I certainly am, to be able to be this successful as a woman. And we've both written books about this shit. And here we are having this conversation about, like, I just decided this weekend I know this. And this morning I was feeling bad because Marty's already at the office. I looked at our schedule for the next month and it's insane. So I made breakfast for my kids this morning and I was like, "God, Jesus, it's 9:30. Like, what have I done? Nothing yet today." And the point is, by 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, I'll be giving a talk. I'll be getting back to Calgary so I can do a consultation for a nonprofit. Then I'll be on a plane to Regina. And then I'll be giving a talk. We just don't understand what it takes to compensate for the degree to which our nervous systems are being aroused. So our dads could say, make hay while the sun shines, because you had to. At 5 o'clock, nobody could get him. Nobody could get my father at 5 o'clock. He was one of the most successful businessmen I've ever met in my life. And we lost him a year ago, this last Friday. And I often think about him all the time because I think one of the best things I got from him was his love of people. He was very, very good at regulating, co-regulating people. Like, nobody, he would always be able to walk people through things, and he loved people. And here I am at 50 and I don't. I mean, I'm over people and I'm quite concerned about that. I love humanity. I just don't like people. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about why that is. And I think, like, he he would come home from work and nobody could get him. He would have Saturdays, Sundays, even groceries had to be got by 6 o'clock. And in just one generation, we can pack all of those things in at any time. And if we don't even want to go out so that we can just regulate our nervous system on a walk to the store or drive to the store, we just Instacart shit. And so then I'm not even interacting more. It is estimated, I read this piece of data earlier this year. It's that 72% of all restaurant orders last year in our country were not eaten in the restaurant.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And why is that important? Well, because when I actually have to get dressed up to go out or meet somebody, that's one thing. But when I have to engage with a server, when I have to make sure my meal is correct or be very grateful to the chef, or it's all of those subtleties of human communication. When my son is your server and he gets the order wrong, and you could be like, you know what, Asher, maybe next time just write this down. Okay, but you know, he's going to learn that lesson from the village of people that his father and I, despite how great we are not going to be able to teach him. So getting out into the community and doing those things are not just rites of passage. They're essential for understanding how to be human and play the game of rejection and acceptance and sad goodbyes and happy, joyous occasions. You don't learn, you can't tell anybody how to feel the range of emotion. You have to show them.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I'm having a reaction. You don't like people, but you like humanity, but humanity is made up of people. And I always feel there's a lot more good than there is negative when you really unravel the onion or whatever. But there's a lot of people struggling. And I try to see that, to truly look at people, to talk to people, even, the cleaner in the office building, and really look in their eyes and try to connect. And I don't know how many people do that, but maybe tell me more about humanity, like how you try to see someone, genuinely see them, Jody, and what you're seeing.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as two white privileged women, it's easy for us to be able to say, yes, I look for the good in people. And I've never had more hope in humanity than I do for this moment, right? Because the bar is so fucking low. Okay. You actually don't even have to be great. However, when the divisiveness gets so dramatic that multiple people who have fought and fought and fought to get seen, to get a place at the table. I don't know when this will air, but the recent news this week about the discrepancy between, not discrepancy, that's not even a strong enough word, but understanding the story that CNN broke about 62 million men on a rape site, learning how to sort of get their women to be submissive because we're losing access to the skill of regulating emotion and having a conversation about things. When we look at 76% of perpetrators in any mass shooting is a man, like when we're talking about a skill deficit, not an us versus them, I get exhausted with the idea of how do we get through to having the conversation. The answer is still, as you say, kindness, but you can't give it away if you've never received it. You can't give those skills away if you are dysregulated. So the predication is on how we start speaking about emotional regulation in ourselves. What are we doing for ourselves? What are we consuming? Who are we surrounding ourselves with so that we are able to serve? It's in that order that I think we're missing a big chunk right now. I think we're really concerned about, I often think about Mr. Rogers' quote, look for the helpers. And the helpers are done. The helpers are tired. And I've said for many generations, and I do generations, Jesus, many years, and also in feeling seen, the focus does not need to be on the little people or the people who are suffering, which sounds asinine. But if the big people aren't okay, the little people don't stand a chance. If you bring your baby into me to see me as a child psychologist, I will assess your kid because that's important, but I'm much more interested in working with the system. If you tell me you have a bunch of burnt out frontline workers who don't want to work because they're Gen AZs or LMNOPs, whatever, I'm not interested in them. That's a leadership issue, which means I need to speak to you about what we need to do to help you feel more competent and confident. My guess is we're doing nothing to support you. And this has never been truer than in the system of education right now. So when I say to, teachers, and I've spoken in every province, every territory, and in multiple states to many different school divisions in public, private, Catholic, all the deals, okay? I often ask any education board, what are you doing for the kids in your system right now? The kids who we know in the mental health crisis are hurting. Well, okay, everybody got a Chromebook. We got a zones of regulation program. We've got the leader in me. We've invested in this. We've got, centers and desks and all the studies are doing all these things. I'm like, holy shit, that's amazing. God bless you. What are you doing for the teachers? Crickets in this province. Crickets. And you know what they say? Listen, they can wear jeans on Friday. Holy shit. You know what else? That we do a potluck once a month. Nothing says you matter, like bring your own food. If we don't invest in the big people, in giving them emotionally regulated places, support, strategies, solutions, and just simply acknowledge the holy work that they do, they will not continue to rise. And we are witnessing that at epic proportions across nursing, mental health, anywhere where we're serving dysregulated people. So the three groups that I often talk about, Laura, and I know you'll be on board with this, if I were just to distill it to three, because it gets so overwhelming sometimes, and I've said this at the United Nations, three groups need the most support right now. Teachers, foster parents. I say parents in particular, but foster parents in particular. If we think about the most dysregulated babies, where they end up, it's foster parents. Very, very unsupported in child and family services, and police officers. So first responders, teachers, and parents, foster parents in particular. If I had a sit down with Mark Carney or Danielle or Donnie Trump, the focus needs to be on the big people, because you can't give away something you've never received. And those big people have never been this tired. They've never been this exhausted or felt this unsupported. We're trying to fix a problem by pulling people out of the river. You need to go to where they're getting in.
You are so right. And at Canada Career Counseling, my team sees, unfortunately, a lot of nurses, healthcare workers, teachers. They're just struggling so much, and they're saying, I'm done with this career. I think I'm ready for a new career. And I'm really scared about that. We can't lose those providers of vital services in our society, because it's raising great humans and educated humans that matters. And then our health matters. And it's just so, they need so much care and nurturing and love. And instead it's, where can we cut costs here and here and here? And everyone's just a dollar sign, basically.
And listen, I understand this. I mean, I've said this at the government level before. I get that we have budgetary constraints. I get that we can't just whip out new schools. I get that we can't, fund EAs to the degree that we need to be doing right now. So I need the people in power to pause for a moment, whether you're at a leadership level or your senior government level, and just say, "Whoa, take a break. Here's what we need you to know. You're phenomenal. Here's what makes us so proud to be in a country with people who just give so much to our children. Here's what I know about teachers. Here's what I know about EAs. Here's what I know about how much they're holding. That school is no longer just a place to educate literacy and numeracy. It is saving lives. It is walking kids through divorces and death and trauma and all of the things that educators spend more waking hours with their kids than their primary caregivers do in the run of the school week. And so if you want to protect the next generation, and I spoke for the women in Department of Defense and Security, and I had a follow-up conversation about how, countries like Russia, China have had playbooks for a long time, really investing in the regulation of their children. Now they're considering it from a perspective of cognitive warfare. That's a NATO term. How do we create regulated humans so that we can instruct them well? We have no plan in Canada to be able to look after our human power. And there's a lot of conversations that I think we're not having yet about what are we doing to ensure that the next generation has the capacity to stay regulated, to lead well, to engage in human connection. That's the mistake.
And I would argue a lot of those things, from having spoken about it and thought a lot about it, is that a lot of the things to create environments where people feel truly seen, heard, and appreciated don't cost money. What they cost is the ability to pause, to give genuine appreciation, to listen with both ears instead of no ears, to close the mouth and open the ears, to take the moments of appreciation and build a psychologically safe school, work environment, government office, wherever it is. That doesn't have to cost a lot, but it does require those soft skills. Soft skills. I hate that word.
Me too. And again, we can't tell senior leadership how to do this, right? Which is why it's like, okay, we can keep going up the chain and being like, it's not the kid's problem, it's not the dad's problem, it's not the daycare's problem, it's not the school's problem. Okay, so who are we looking after? Which is why, I mean, the vast majority of your work, of my work, is really like, okay, put me in with senior leadership teams. Give me the ones that are talking about policy change and productivity, and let's talk about how we need to do that in a world where we don't have any rules with how we are running operations, because we haven't lost our ability to be great, we're losing access to it. So the greatest conversation needs to be, how do we access the best in people? Okay, let's build our companies based on that, and then people will skate through walls for you. Then people are like, put me in. I feel so acknowledged and seen. Finally, somebody gets it, right? Can you do it for everybody all the time? No, I mean, again, this being human is hard. It's always been hard. Relationships will never get any easier, particularly these days when we have so many exit ramps. But the depth of relationship will always be the thing that we need to talk about the most, because we won't automate that. The only AI, I stole this from Esther Perel, the only AI that's going to matter in this next generation, if you want a successful organization or successful relationships, is authentic interaction.
I love that. That is great. Authentic interaction. But let's talk about actual AI, the pros and the cons, and what we need to do about navigating it so we don't continue to lose the human connection through AI.
I can't think of a better way to sort of talk about it other than the discipline of connection. and the benefits of connection. Those are the things we need to start talking about. Why would I put my phone down when it's so enticing? What is the benefit to me, to my children, to the next generation? What are those things that we need to start educating or speaking about a little bit more about how we as a group, and we can externalize everything. This is the sort of anxiety treatment 101. How do we externalize humans against the bad, big bad guy? How do we stay human in our community? How do we really do promote those activities? I think that's first. Um, and I think, in the new book, I talk about it like sort of in this way. This I hope is memorable, but how we used to say like stop, drop, and roll. I really think there's a need right now, just even in any critical moment, to stop, just to pause for a minute, and then drop your shoulders, and then you roll from there, because that's where you can give it away. And if you put that on repeat, it really is the constant in my day when I'm getting caught up in something. If I can just a minute, right? I just need to stop for a second. So it's in my car, it's one big breath. It's when Aaron and I are in that's my husband, a massive lockdown, shoot him out about something. And okay, drop your shoulders, get back to the best in you, and then roll from there. It doesn't mean I'm going to concede or agree or condone or support, but I need access to the best in me before I can ever expect anything from this world around me. And so many of us don't have that skill yet, because particularly I would argue men over women, because nobody has shown us how to do it. And unless we take this on as our greatest responsibility in this generation, we'll have our daughters, our sons having conversations like this, where they're just like, we don't know. We don't know. Like, nobody's taught us this, because our parents, our grandparents were on their iPads.
Yeah. So the way I see AI is it's a useful set of tools to make life more efficient and to ultimately save time. Save time on anything that is routine, repetitive, or can be generated in a way that saves us the time generating it. But it can save us time, but that's it. It can't consume all of our time, because then it's not saving us time. We need to take that time that we save and put it back into the genuine human connections, the creativity, the stuff that AI can't fully replicate. Yes, it can do some creative stuff, but still the most creativity is within. Would you agree?
Oh yeah. I remember Jay Baer talked about this. He's written a number of books that I think were interesting. He's like, so if the purpose of AI is to create efficiencies, and or not the purpose, but like one of the greatest benefits is to create efficiencies, and really sort of decrease all of the things that we can, the time. His biggest question is, then what are you doing with your extra time? How are you being very diligent about where that time saving is being spent? And if we allow ourselves to, because our nervous systems are still so overwhelmed, we usually spend a lot of that saves time scrolling.
It's so easy. And businesses, here's the risk with organizations. Okay, save time, cut headcount.
Or you can work from home. It's going to make us more efficient. You can, no, you don't have to come. We're not going to do this conference because we can do it. Everybody can call in. I am such a proponent of the hybrid model of getting people back into the office at least as much as you possibly can. And I understand, we have international organizations that don't allow this to happen. But I would just argue that, you can't demand your people back to work, because you can't tell anybody what to do and hope they're going to love it. One of the greatest conversations we're having at an organizational level is, how do we get people to want to be back in community with each other?
Yeah, and I'm a huge fan of hybrid as well, because I don't think it has to be every single day, 10 commutes a week necessarily to have community. I think you can have days in the office and days at home, but those days in the office shouldn't be in the Zoom cage. They should be in a sense of community, team, making the most out of being together.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Let's talk for a moment, because I really want to ask you this, Jody, about social media and the impact that that's having on mental health and what we need to do about it in society.
Mm-hmm. So social media is a misnomer right out of the gate, because social media is not social. Social media is designed to create a safe space for you to double down on everything you believe. and to support and choose the people that are like you and that are interested in the things you like, and support the political ideals that you do. And I often talk about this. This is the reason why so many of our devices are so powerful in keeping us there, because it's designed for things we love. I want to see what's going on with this musician or this actress, or if I'm supporting a particular cause. Oh my God, that's the only thing that's flooded on my algorithm. Funny. Oh my God, if I were to pick up my husband's phone, he's a feedlot nutritionist. He loves cows. He loves golfing. He's a 50-year-old guy who's a runner. When I scroll through his social media, I'm there for exactly 36 seconds, because it's like a bull sale in Wyoming. And, what is the correct ration for a bunch of female yearling heifers? I don't care. And then if he were going to scroll on my phone, he wouldn't stay there long either, because it's like, women are going to save the world, perimenopausal nutrition, what can you make for a recipe, for supper when you don't like to cook, shit like that. So that's not his. So I think what's interesting is that there's nothing social about it. And so I was reading the other day, listening to, I'm going to get his name wrong, so I'm not even going to say it. But I really loved his conversation around, okay, let's get really specific around then what allows ourselves to take some breaks from this. And he said three things: tech-free zones, tech-free times, and any kind of tech sabbatical. And I love that. So tech-free zones means, can you start to create some spaces in your life where, for you and your family system, it's a rule that if you enter the kitchen table, anywhere near the kitchen table, that's a zone that phones don't come. If the children have people stay over, they just know you're the mom that collects the tech at the door. And if you need it, guys, no problem. If you're going to play a game together, no problem. As soon as that's done, it needs to come back here. And I get the right to ask you about that. Okay. I'm not checking your phone. I'm not looking at anything. Maybe car drives. Any car drive under an hour means iPads or iPods out, phones on the whatever. Okay. So those are examples of tech-free zones. Tech-free times, the greatest, as you know, I mean, this is not going to be a surprise to anybody. 1 hour after you get up and 1 hour before bed. If you can keep those 1 hours sacred, your nervous system has a chance to rev up and calm down. I am shitty at that. My phone is by my bed more often than I want it to be. So can we compromise in any way around that? Charge it outside of the bedroom 2 nights a week, you know? So tech-free zones, tech-free times, and then the idea of tech sabbaticals, which is sort of like what you're talking about. Can I actually take an entire Sunday and not look at anything? Can I leave my phone at home? And we're so scared because, our kids have access to us, or our parents who are aging have access to it, or our team, what if something comes up? So if you can't do a whole day, do an hour on purpose, do a day on purpose. If you can't do a fucking week on purpose, if you could swing it, try a vacation. And I even say this to organizations now. I want you to hold a meeting once a week, if you have a weekly meeting, and ask everybody to leave their tech at the desks, including their watches. Watch what happens.
So powerful. I love this, Jody. And I'm going to ask you a couple of three final questions that I ask all my guests. So, and one is, what does work-life wellness look like for you? How do you practice this in your own life?
It comes down to three things for me. And I mean, this is going to sound more simplistic because this is the rules. I never follow them to the degree, which I hoped I would, but
that's okay. You're human, Dr.
Right?
Jody. You're human after all. What are you trying to do with your work-life wellness?
Three things: go in, go out, and then put that on relentless repeat. So go in means this sort of number one focus all the time on my own emotional regulation. So where's my shoulders? Am I moving my body once a day? How much water am I drinking? What am I doing to be kind to this human who probably only has another 25 years on this planet? What am I doing to give my kids the mom that is going to be as regulated as she can? If I have big dreams about changing the world and writing policy changes and getting a New York Times bestseller, none of that's going to happen unless I go in first. Okay. And then I go out. Then my number one reason on this planet is to give it away. Compliments, my time, my skill, my smile, my wave at my neighbor, all of those things. And then it's going to exhaust me. So then I'm going to put that on relentless repeat. I'm going to go in and go out, go in and go out, go in and go out.
Love that. And your energy, I mean, you have such a bright light, you have such a positive charisma to you, but it has to be filled. It's like going to the gas station, right? I'm known to run my car until it's really empty, like, oh shit, I have 10 kilometers left. But it's like that. Don't wait till you have 10 left. That's not good for the car. Go and fill it up regularly, in and out. I think that's a really profound message, Dr. Jody.
I love it.
My next question is, what do you read or listen to? One or two things for your own growth or development.
My favorite podcast right now is The Curiosity Shop. It is an effort by Brene Brown and Adam Grant, two of my favorites in the world of research. So they've come together and started a podcast. They hated each other at one point. And just because there was a misunderstanding about an article that Adam published and Brene responded to, and blah, 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 blah. But they've come together just really sort of creating a space about curiosity in this human race. And so I learn a ton from them. And yeah, I think that's my greatest thing right now.
Beautiful. And if you could have one wish for a better world when it comes to our children's future, what would it be?
I wish that everybody in this moment knew how much they mattered. Because when you know, you rise. And so many of us have no idea how much we mean to so many people, how much we need to look after ourselves so that we can continue to be moms and dads and grandparents and cookums and aunties and brothers and sisters and whatever that looks like. And our job is to look after that first.
Exactly. And it's that power of human connection that matters. And let's celebrate people's lives every day, not at the end, but every day, a celebration of life every day. And let's remain connected and use AI as an ally and a support, but we can't lose the human side in all of this.
Yeah, amen.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Dr. Jody. I really appreciate you. I have so many nuggets here. I love how articulate you are, and you cover 3 or 4 topics when you answer each question. So we covered major ground. So I hope you go replenish at some point today because you gave a lot of energy here today, Dr. Jody, and I hope you stay well. Thank you for tuning in to Where Work Meets Life. If you found this content valuable, please rate, review, and share with others who may benefit. If you're struggling in your work life and need support, I offer coaching sessions. You can book a complimentary consult on my website. I'm also a passionate keynote speaker and would love to discuss your professional speaking needs. Visit my website, drlaura.live, to sign up for my monthly e-newsletter filled with tips and resources to help you stay well.